Hi, it's me again. I'm just going to show you each of the tiles in this game, since it's quite a hefty investment to buy it. So I'm just going to hold it up to the camera just for a few seconds, just to give you a snapshot of what it looks like. You can obviously pause the video if you want to get a closer look. The reason I can't include it as a PDF is that Drive-Through RPG wants me to print any PDFs that I include. So it's much easier to just make a video, upload it to YouTube, and include that YouTube link as something in the product description. Okay, so I'm going to start with the rule book and the character tiles. So here we go. It's the first page of the rules. On the other side, the first character. Second page of the rules. Second character. Third page of the rules. Third character. Fourth page of the rules. Fourth character. So this page is blank at the moment, but once I update the game, it'll be filled with text, maybe frequently asked questions, clarifications, maybe expanded rules as of this page. This is the starting tile, the dungeon tile, and this is the event tile on the other side. This is one of the 6 bosses in the game, with a cave-in tile on the other side. This is one of the 12 demi-bosses, I suppose you'd call them, with a positive event tile on the other side. So most of these illustrations are done by Donald Weiss. But some, like this one, are done by Stanley Ditko. And Stanley, he's the main illustrator I've used for most of my games. Stanley's the person who introduced me to Donald, who's been helping out with this game. Sadly, sadly, Stanley did die while I was making this game. And that's why there's no tunnels and caverns on these dungeon tiles. So these dungeon tiles, they're meant to have either 1, 2, 3, or 4 tunnels coming out of each tile, so that they didn't necessarily connect to each other. So, for instance, on this one, there might be one tunnel coming out here, and it would be mirrored on the back. So, one coming out there. And on this one, there might be one tunnel coming out here, one out here, one out here, so 3. So it connects to most tiles, and it would be mirrored on the back. But Donald, he planned some of those dungeon tiles, but died before he finished them all, so I can't include them. The way they work is very similar to Carcassonne, if you know their board game. It's a very popular board game, which is totally based around the whole idea of connecting tiles where they don't match up necessarily. It's kind of like a jigsaw. It's kind of like putting a jigsaw together. Part of the reason why I wanted that is it's more like how dungeons work in most of these games, and it also just makes movement more of an issue. I think without the tunnels, movement won't be as much as an issue, and you'll tend to put all the tiles side by side, so you'll just have this big kind of blob of tiles, and it's not as aesthetically interesting, really, and not as strategically interesting, which is the main problem. Some of these combat encounters, they say 1 dice of a certain monster, or 2 dice of a certain monster. So in that case, you just you roll however many dice, and that's how many creatures you fight. So let's say if you fought 1 dice of goblins and you rolled a 5, you would fight 5 goblins. And if they had 5 MR, then your opponents would roll 5 dice. So it wouldn't be like fighting 1 MR25 creature. It'd be like fighting 5 individual MR5 creatures. With that last tile, the event tile, says if you cast Knock Knock. So just remember that takes a turn to cast, a round to cast. It's another one of those 6 boss tiles with a cave in on the back. Illustration by Stanley Ditko. Hope you can see the difference. That one's by Donald. When it says you do not need to fight a foe, if you're, let's say, a wizard or an elf or a human, if you choose not to fight them at the end of the round, when you're resolving the tiles that the characters are on, then that means you don't flip it over. So if you were on that tile and you ended your turn on it, and you chose not to resolve it, essentially, if you met the condition of being an elf, then you wouldn't flip it over, and you wouldn't get an item tile, and it wouldn't become an event tile, for better or worse. So that one slash, that's a spite ability. So what that means is that when you're doing their combat roll, if you roll dice with a 6 on the side, that comes up, equal to the number before the slash, then it activates the spite ability. Okay, I'm getting onto the item tiles now. So these are picked up consumable side up, and you use one of these consumable items which have one charge. So you choose which one, but you just use one of them once. And when you use them, you flip it over and you gain the benefit of both of these permanent items. As with the dungeon tiles, with the combats and events, there's 36 of them. The difference is that there's 2 consumable and permanent items on each tile. The main reason for that is that it doesn't need to have the tunnels on them. The tunnels that are meant to be on the dungeon tiles, but weren't drawn on them because my illustrator passed away. With the gloves of transfer, it takes a round to use the ability. So when you're using any item, it takes a round to use it if it doesn't have a passive ability. So consumables, if you want to use that consumable, it takes a round to use. That means if it's something that you're using in combat, it takes a round of combat to use. So that means you can't roll the dice when you're using it. So that stone-skinned elixir, if you use that, it'd be a good decision in the long run for the combat, but it would mean that you'd be in trouble during that round that you use it, because you wouldn't be rolling any dice towards the combat total. So it's quite often just a question of whether you can survive in the short term. You actually want to use consumables in this game. They slow you down really, particularly if you use them outside of combat. But it means that you can use 2 permanent items once you use one of them, one of the consumables. Okay, 2 more. I'll probably make expansions for this. My priority right now is just updating the text, fixing typos, mistakes, and changing the difficulty of the game. Next will be updating the illustrations, adding the tunnels, colorizing things, but eventually I'll add expansions. So those are the tiles, and it gives you a good preview of the game. If you're interested, buy a copy. Hope you do. And if you have any questions, just send me an email at joelholmesmarler@gmail.com. So that's JOELHOLMESMARLER@gmail.com. Okay, have fun, and remember to escape from Danger Dungeon.